the Cambridge Creatives Q&A with OT Fagbenle. Hi, I'm Harriet, Executive Officer of Cambridge Creatives.
Hi, I'm Hannah and I'm President. Thank you for supporting Cambridge Creatives. We are a student-run creative collective and we are curating a series of talks with world-renowned professionals in film, TV and theatre. So please follow our Facebook page to find out more about future events and opportunities. Just a couple of housekeeping rules before we begin. If you have any questions for our guest speaker, please type them into the Q&A function, which is somewhere down there, and not the chat function, and we'll read them out for you at the end. One, bear with us if there are any technical difficulties, and two, let us know in the chat if there are any problems hearing or seeing us. But most importantly, enjoy the Q&A.
So OT is an acclaimed actor, writer, musician and director. He started his career in theatre and eventually led the cast of the National Theatre's production of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, starring as Levee, which won the Olivier Award in 2016 for Best Revival. In 2017, he began his long-standing role as Luke in the Emmy Award-winning series The Handmaid's Tale. Fagbenle made history when he became the first person to write, direct, compose, star, and executive produce the opening episode of a TV series on a major US network with his show Maxxx, or Maxxx XXX, on HULU and Channel 4. He will play Rick Mason in Marvel Studios' next film, Black Widow, and play Barack Obama opposite Viola Davis Michelle Obama in an upcoming TV series. We are honoured to have this renowned actor speak. So, Oti, hello, first of all.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
When did you know you wanted to be an actor or even just like work on stage and screen?
I mean, I guess it kind of happened in stages. I was involved in arts as a young person, teenager and stuff. And then I applied to go to drama school at 18. So I guess that's really when it kind of clicked for me that this is something that I was really interested in pursuing. But in many ways, it wasn't until after I graduated and I'd done my first couple of shows that I decided that I was really going to try and dedicate myself to, you know, excellence or trying to be excellent in what I was doing in a really kind of considered way. And so, yeah, that's kind of my arc.
So you say that you like studied at film school. Do you like drama school? Do you recommend going to drama school or film school for like any people watching who want to get into the industry and like follow in your footsteps?
You know, some of my favorite actors didn't go to drama school, Natalie Portman or Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp. There's a bunch of them that didn't. And then there are loads of great ones that did, and some that did it partially. Daniel Day-Lewis, I think, went for a year or something. So I don't think there's any one way. I personally got a lot from drama school, and I think there's a lot to be said, not only for the training, which is the most important thing, but also, you know, being part of a community of people who are dedicated to their craft, and also just on a kind of logistical level, drama school is a great way to get an agent. So I would recommend it, but there are many ways to skin the proverbial. It's horrible saying that, skin a cat. There are many ways to skin a cat. Why did that become a saying? Anyway, yeah.
It's very weird. I feel like it's a weird British saying. We have many.
Poor cats.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting an agent at drama school, how did you eventually get into the industry, or is it quite a well-trodden path from drama school agent and then get your first sort of theatre or screen role?
Yeah, you know, throughout my journey, I've been really, really blessed and really lucky. I got into drama school the first time. I got an agent from my first show in my third year at drama school, and the first audition I went on, I got the part. So it was pretty smooth sailing into the industry. Although I would say, you know, I started small. I had a tiny part in my very first play. The second thing I did was pantomime. The third thing I did was like a children's show, you know, like a community show going to old people's houses, you know, community centers and stuff like that. And so, yeah. So anyway, that was my entrance into it.
Like, so do you have like a top tip that you would give to like any students who are looking to get into the industry, just like not just to do with like schools and stuff, but just like your best piece of advice?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch, but the first one that comes to me now is just the importance of maintaining one's mental health and really finding ways, because every artist is going to receive many more no's than they do yeses. and we're judged on that which is most intimate to us. Our inner selves is what we're using, that's the clay with which we mold our characters. And so it can be very personal to be rejected like that. And so having like a robust system to protect your mental health, and I've developed one over the years to try and help me. And so I would say exploring that would be a really worthwhile endeavor.
Definitely. That's very clear advice, especially in this time when it's been so hard for us all. Moving on to kind of like specific roles, obviously you went to drama school, and I'm assuming acting was your first love, but when did you know that you wanted to do other things like directing or writing or even music?
Funny enough, I started off with an African theatre company, Ritual Theatre Arts, run by the late and great Rufus Orishiomi. And when we would do that, we would act and we would sing and we would play instruments and we would dance, and hell, we might help out with the, putting up the props and stuff like that. And so for me, the idea that there was a clear delineation between, these things was a bit weird for me, to be honest. And I've always written, I've always made music, I've always been curious about directing and stuff like that. So I guess my expansion into those realms professionally comes much later than my expansion to those realms personally, because I was writing since I was a child. I was writing poetry and as a young teenager and stuff like that. So I guess more people became aware of my involvement in those things, but I was always involved in them.
Oh, lovely. So now going to start on like the theatre projects. So you played the role of Sport and Life in Sir Trevor Nunn's production of Porgy and Bess at the Savoy. How did you become involved in this project?
Well, I had an agent, my agent Dawn Green, who was wonderful, and she got me an audition for it, and I auditioned and got it. I mean, it's a funny one because I can sing okay, but I'm not like a Western singer, and so but I just had a very strong instinct about the character, and so I kind of like just acted the hell out of all the songs as much as possible. And I don't know. There's a long version of the story, but the short version is I got offered the role eventually, and I spent the first month of rehearsals in, really certain that I was going to get fired every day, because they would figure out that I couldn't really sing properly, and so every time someone would come into the rehearsal room, I'd be like, oh, here they are to tell me that it's all over. But there was such an amazing cast. And they're so supportive, all of them, and so encouraging, and so that really helped. It was really one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life, getting to do that, to sing with an orchestra was I don't know, it was like transformative in a way, actually, the very first time I sang with an orchestra. So yeah. Don't know, I can't remember what the question was. Oh, but just a shout out, actually. Clark Peters played Porgy, and I can't speak enough to the older actors that I work with, particularly in theatre, who kind of took me under their wing and were big brothers and uncles, and to me, there are a number of them, but Clark Peters definitely was someone who really, brought me in as family, and it really makes a huge difference, actually.
That's amazing and very exciting, actually, because we're hoping to speak to him at the end of term, so we can.
Well, you tell him I shouted him out like that, because I love that man.
No, and it's an amazing production, and you got such incredible reviews. Did you feel like, in terms of your characterization, did you feel inspired by the previous sort of portrayals, especially Sammy Davis Jr. in the film, or did you kind of want to go off on your own path?
Yeah, I played Mercutio once as well, and I wanted to find my own Mercutio first. And then in the last week, I had a little look at some other Mercutios to see if there was anything I could borrow from them. And then I did the same with Porgy, with Sport and Life. I went about creating my own idea, and then last minute went and had a little look at what other people are doing and see if there was stuff to pilfer from the annals of history.
Was there anything in particular that you took, or was it just a bit of a boost, a confidence boost?
Oh no, it wasn't. I mean, look, Sammy. I mean, gosh, he's such a genius, and you know, and Sammy, his ability to dance and sing, you know, that's not where my strengths are. I'm not a particularly good dancer or singer, you know, and so you know, I would never compare myself to the great Sammy Davis, but yeah, I guess I can't remember specifically now, but I'm sure there would be one or two. Sometimes it would be very small things, a gesture, a prop, you know. Sometimes I'll watch people do stuff and go, oh, well, I shouldn't do that. That doesn't work. You know, they're not with Sammy, but yeah, I'm looking for all sorts of weird little inspirations.
I was going to say, after listening to Maxxx, I thought your singing was great. I was a big fan. The songs are very, very catchy.
Oh, thanks a lot.
But going back to theatre, so you played like Levee in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in the National Theatre production in 2016, as you mentioned before. Now, was your approach to this role different? How did you approach this role?
You know, it's really funny. I'll try and tell the short version of the story, but basically I found this play, Ma Rainey, at drama school, and Levee, the character, and it just spoke to me, it just rang to me. And I remember doing the speech of it, and it really, really resonating with me. And so a few years into my career, I kind of, you know, Terrell McCraney, actually, he's this amazing, he won an Oscar now, but he's just amazing, the beloved friend of mine. He messaged me, he was like, what do you want, let's do a play together, what should we do? And I was like, I want to play Levee in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And he was like, all right, cool, blah, blah, blah. But for whatever reason, it never really manifested. And then I remember again, I was doing some interviews a couple of years later, and they were like, you know, what do you want to do? You've been doing TV. And I was like, I'd love to go back to theatre, and I'd love to play Levee in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Anyway, I told my agent, I auditioned to play Levee in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom at the Manchester Royal Exchange, and I got offered the part. And I was so excited, but then I thought, wait a minute, but if they ever do it in London, they may discriminate against me because I've done it before, because they do that sometimes. So I called my agent up and said, I'm turning it down. And she was like, why are you turning it down? I was like, because they might do it in London at some point. And they said, you're insane. You're insane. You wanted to do this part. Like, they may never do it in London. They may do it in London in 30 years' time. They may do it in London, but they've already cast the actor. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, I just said, I couldn't live with myself if it happened. So I turned it down. And then cut to like 10 years later or whatever, I get a call saying they're doing Ma Rainey's Black Bottom at the National Theatre. I was like, sweet. Like, I'm in. Like, get me that audition. And he said, oh, look, they've already cast the character, Giles Torero, who's an amazing actor, a beloved friend of mine. And I was like, oh, well, if they've already cast one of the actors, they would have cast Levee first. So I'm not going in. I'm not going in. And they were like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. You've never done the National Theatre before. Like, you can play one of the other parts. I was like, I cannot stand on stage and watch someone else do my part. Like, I won't do that. So I'm not going in. But they called up and said, no, Giles is playing a different part. So I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, fine, I'll go in. So then I went in, and I prepared 2 scenes, and I went in and I did my first scene, and Dominic Cook, wonderful director, he saw the first scene and was like, all right, thanks for coming. And I was like, now in auditions, if you don't like the person, you don't spend more time with them. So if you like the person, you want to see as much as possible. So after we did the first scene, he was like, all right, thanks, you can go now. And I was like, you don't want to see the second? No, it's fine, you can go. I was like, so I came out the audition, I was like, oh man, I guess that's it. A 10-year dream down the drain. I called my agent. I was like, well, you know. And then I got offered the part. The guy, Dominic, said he saw me. He was just like, that's him. And so that was my journey to it. I mean, it's a bit of a longer story, but that was my journey to it. And if I was to pick one thing that I've done in my entire career, my experience on Ma Rainey with that cast, especially our gang, the boys in the band, was the closest thing to a spiritual experience I've had, you know, over a long period on a show. It was a really transcendent experience being with those guys. They're so talented. Being with that text, yeah, I really love that show.
Oh, sounds like a literal dream come true.
Yeah. Wow.
Did it feel really sort of fulfilling as well to have that musical aspect, and to like bring in the saxophone and your musical skills in as well, as to have this kind of like round off of performance?
Well, Levee plays the cornet, and you know, brass instruments are so different from, you know, and there's a muscularity. You can't just easily So I went to New Orleans and I studied the cornet and tried to learn it as best I could in this short amount of time. But I love being able to use the various aspects of theatre. I mean, like I said, in the ritual theatre arts, that's where I came from. I came from a tradition of using lots of different styles. So yeah, it was great.
Amazing. So moving on a bit. So how did you like maneuver the transition from like from theatre into like film and TV? Like, was there a particular project, because you speak so fondly of being on stage, was there a particular project that like inspired you to make the move?
I knew I wanted to do screen work, and as the way my theatre career was going, I was starting to get the sense that I'd be able to work at that level, at a good level at theatre indefinitely. But I know after a while people will start discriminating against theatre actors sometimes because they don't have enough experience. So at the point I stopped doing theatre auditions because I really wanted to work in screen and TV, and then I put myself on tape for a movie called Breaking and Entering, directed by Anthony Minghella. And anyway, I ended up getting that part. That was really my first film role. And Anthony, who's passed now, was just, I feel like I'm saying this about everyone, but Anthony literally is the nicest guy I've ever met. And his son Maxxx is on Handmaid's Tale, and so we worked together on Breaking and Entering. I had a tiny part, and I got to be on set for a month, not saying much, but getting to watch Juliette Binoche and Jude Law and Ray Winstone and other greats, Martin Friedman, do this amazing work. Get to watch Anthony work, and so yeah, that was the crossover for me.
Sounds like a real masterclass of sort of screen acting. Did you find that you learned something in particular whilst being on set, that you had to kind of like change your approach from being a stage actor to maybe being more subtle in front of the camera, or was it a kind of easy transition?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I still feel I'm transitioning. I started performing on stage in earnest, I guess, when I was 14, 15. And so by the time I was, I guess I won my first award at theatre when I was 24, 25. So I was a decade in. It was a decade, including 3 years of training to feel like I knew what I was doing on stage somewhat. And so, yeah, I'm still exploring my craft as a screen actor. And I've learned a lot. I mean, to be honest, my biggest teacher in screen acting has probably been Lizzie Moss. Getting to act opposite her for 4 years has taught me a lot about the process of screen acting. Yeah.
Did you find the direction was any different from like film and TV compared to theatre? Was that like a struggle to like get past at first?
No, the biggest difference is between directors as opposed to between genres or whatever. Yeah, different directors are some directors are very hands-off. When I was working with Trevor, I remember Trevor Nunn during Sporting Life, he was very like almost pedantic, like you move over there and you lift the glass on this line and then you move over there on that line. And I remember going back home and be like, man, I can't work like this. Like I'm an experimenter. That's the way my process is. And so I would just, about 2 weeks into rehearsal, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do my own thing. So I'm gonna walk over there on that line instead. And he didn't say anything. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go over there on this line, and then I'm gonna say this line, shout, and then I started really like pushing the boat out, just trying. And he just gave me a leash, and God bless him. And then eventually, he would start tweaking the stuff I would do. But I guess what I'm saying is that different directors are different, but even a director can be different between shows and between actors and everything like that, depending on what the relationship is like.
Definitely. And you spoke about acting with Elisabeth Moss on Handmaids. What is it like working with her as both June and Offred and as well as an executive producer? Does she have much more of a kind of like leadership role on set?
Yeah, I mean, she's one of the most extraordinarily powerful and gifted people. Powerful as an artist. She really understands television in a way that I don't know. I still marvel at. She's directing this season. I mean, and she's directing the hell out of it. She's nailing it. Like, and she just understands everything. She understands cast dynamics, crew dynamics. She understands storytelling. She understands cinematography. She really gets it. She's a master, and she's also just hilarious and fun to hang out with. And so, yeah, I've got all the love for Lizzie Mars.
Wow, that sounds great. Very exciting news about her directing. So,
Yeah.
like, going kind of back to like the origins of Handmaid's Tale, is there anything specifically that attracted you to the character of Luke and like the project in general? Like, had you read the book before you had like started the project?
I mean, to be honest, I guess so much in everything is execution. You know, you can really like a script, but it really depends on how it's executed. And so really one of the biggest draws for me was Reed Morano, who was the director of it. We'd worked together on Looking, this HBO show. And I love Reed, and she was so cool and such a, again, just a savant of filmmaking. So it looked great. I mean, the script was very interesting. The cast was very interesting. And so that was all very attractive to me. I wasn't to know the level of brilliance of the writing team that worked on Handmaids and the crew and the cast till I got there and I started working on it. I wouldn't know as intimately, but I knew Reed and I trusted her, and that was a big draw for me.
Definitely. And how did you kind of make because the series kind of extends past where the book ends, how did you make a distinction between the characterization of Luke in pre-Gilead America and then Luke in his escape, after his escape in Canada? And did you look at the novel for inspiration, or did you just again take it on your own path?
The novel's pretty sparse when it comes to Luke, actually. There isn't that much in it about him. So I pretty much not so much had a blank canvas. I had the scripts, these great scripts to work with. And so I just fed up those.
So have you enjoyed watching like Luke and Moira's relationship and friendship like evolve over the seasons? Like, what's it like working with like Samira Wiley, who's so amazing?
Samira is hilarious. She's so fun and funny and like energetic. She is like, we've got a kind of, we've got a very playful kind of brother sister family kind of feel. I've been on, I don't think it's a spoiler to say I've been on set with her a lot this season, and yeah, I don't know, we just have a great time, really.
And I guess you have like such fun kind of behind the scenes relationships with these other actors, but actually on scene there are so many violent and visceral scenes on set. How do you kind of cope with filming these really intense moments, and do you have like any sort of procedures or processes that you go through to protect yourself from these like quite intense and scary scenes?
Nah. Listen, with this, we love it. Give an actor a crying scene. It's not coming from the nose. We're like, yes, this is what I became an actor for. You don't need any protection from it. It's what we love. It's what we dream of, sleeping at night. One day I'm going to be crying on TV. That's the cathartic nature of our craft. It's a gift to be given these complex characters going through the extremities of human experience.
Oh, well, makes me a little bit less stressed when I watch it then, knowing that you're all having a good time. Because also another kind of resonant part of Handmaid's Tale, obviously, when you were filming the show, did you find any like strange resonances with like the real world, especially like Trumpian politics? Like, how was that, like navigating that?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. It is interesting. I mean, to some extent, though, this is a really roundabout way of answering the question, but I remember doing some research for a play I was doing about the Broadwater farm riots, and I went to the library because that's what you did back then if you wanted to read stuff, and I was going through old newspapers, and it was so remarkable 30 years ago, how similar the storylines were. Israel and Palestine and trouble in the Middle East and this terrorist bomb here and this person had been kidnapped and this tension and the oil prices and the blah, blah, blah. It was almost the same headline. And so it's funny about something being felt as prescient because in a way, you know, they say history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, but there's a lot of rhyming that goes on with, you know, totalitarian regimes and populist revolutions and patriarchy and you know, like, unfortunately, all of those things existed 30 years ago and 60 years ago and 100 years ago. And so that's, in a way, I think it speaks to the universality of what Margaret Atwood wrote, is that it kind of speaks to something fundamental about the human condition up until this point.
Yeah, definitely. I heard that Margaret Atwood said that everything, like her inspiration for the novels actually came from real life. So it is so strangely and scarily founded in truth. Did you have any kind of like favorite memories or scenes or even a favorite season from Handmaid's Tale?
The first season was really great. There were so many flashbacks. So I got to do a lot of a lot of fun stuff with Lizzie before it got all dark. But and also the excitement of creating something new that, you know, I really enjoyed. I really loved the whole process. This most recent season, I think, might be the best season yet. I'm really excited about it. So yeah, the first season, and I don't know about picking a scene. There are a bunch of scenes I really liked. I mean, just off the top of my head, it was great to work with Yvonne last season. One of my dear friends, Colin Watkinson, who's a DP, Emmy award-winning DP. What, Colin? He was directing that episode, and so to be directed by Colin, and then also to work with Yvonne, who I had not worked with a bunch before, and she's just like so good. That's something, that's the first one that comes to my head.
So you just said about season 4 potentially being the best season yet. Is there anything you can tell us about season 4? Is there anything you're allowed to tell us about season 4?
I mean, they're flipping everything on its head. Just get ready for everything to be.
Wow.
Well, the trailer's come out, so we're very, very excited for it to come out. Moving on to Maxxx, and congratulations, by the way, on your recent nomination for Best Comedy Actor by the Royal Television Society.
Thanks.
You kind of had a multiplicity of roles as directing, starring, writing, and executive producing on Maxxx. How did you sort of like balance your time between the roles, and was it like incredibly enjoyable and fulfilling to have so much creative control and to kind of like actuate your vision?
Yeah, I mean, it was very fulfilling, you know. It's, you know, Maslow has this hierarchy of needs, and he talks about, like, the top one. Oh God, it's gone out of my head now. But anyway, but the point is that like it felt very self-actualizing. It felt very kind of like I was like in a flow of doing what, you know, full expression. I enjoy it. Meh. It was hard. It was really hard. It was hard, and you know, when it says that I did all those roles, yeah, I did, but I had a lot of support. I had a lot of support from great actors and great writers. I had a lot of support from Nick Collette. I had a lot of support from my brother, Luti Fagbenle at Luti Media. I had a lot of support from Channel 4, you know, Bruce Peary. Like I could go on and on about the amount of support I had for each, you know. So yeah, I mean, it was made possible through listen, if the one thing I did brilliantly, I will say this, I'll tell you what I did excellently, is I hired people who were smarter than me. That was the genius stroke I made. I was like, you're more talented than me, so you come over here, and so are you, so you come over here.
Well, that's a great piece of advice that I'll remember there.
Yeah, never be the smartest person in the room. That's one of my rules.
Perfect. So where did you, obviously Maxxx deals a lot with like celebrity culture, and he's kind of like an ex-boy band star whose career has kind of gone down the drain a bit, and he's trying to resuscitate it. For those that haven't watched Maxxx, just to give some context. So was it this like celebrity culture that gave you inspiration to write Maxxx, or did it come from somewhere else?
I mean, it was a confluence of things. I mean, one thing is I was going through this big heartbreak, and the partner I was with became, you know, relatively well known, and it was challenging for me to deal with losing that relationship, and so that was one thing, and then on the other thing, I was doing Ma Rainey at the time, and I was like, I get to play this weird maniacal character on stage, but on TV, I'm always like the nice boyfriend. And I wanted to play something a bit more like that. So that was a part of it. And then also, I've always found celebrity really weird, but not just celebrity. You know, we live in a culture because of social media where it's like people are constantly looking for affirmation of themselves. You know, how many likes you have and how many friend requests you have, and all, you know, so much of a lot of people's sense of self-worth comes from the external, and then, you know, obviously a sustained sense of self-worth comes from the internal. And so that contradiction between what we're sold and what our poor ignorant limbic systems are fired up to do through social media, you know, that contradiction between what's essentially important and what we go for instead, that's something on a philosophical and a psychological level I'm always curious about and exploring. And so
speaking of that, like, very philosophical and psychological aspect, Maxxx is very funny, but it also deals with some really hard-hitting and political issues in a subtle and intelligent way. Do you think that comedy is especially adept at addressing these political issues, and it's a brilliant form to do it?
Oh, thanks for saying so. Yeah, to be honest, actually, it is. I mean, lots of my favorite comedies do that. You know, stuff like Catch-22, the novel, you know, was one of my favorite novels, because it was just like, oh, this is such a brilliant way of kind of like dissecting the kind of contradictions of war, and so yeah. So I guess yeah, it is something. Also, I'm you know, I don't know. I want the content that I consume to operate on multiple levels. You know, The Simpsons, for example, are a big inspiration to me, because that's what they managed to do. Just to have this sense of like farce and levity, but at the same time make political commentary. And so, yeah, I'm really inspired by that kind of stuff.
Like, so when I watch Maxxx, my like favorite storyline of the show, and one that like really stood out that was like added from the shorts, is like Max's son Amit and his like queer awakening. I thought his relationship with non-binary Rox was really touching and really like beautifully done, because there was never that like kind of coming out conversation. It was just kind of natural and like accepted, which was really lovely to see on screen. Do you think that like LGBTQ plus representation is improving on screen? And like, I mean, hopefully this isn't the case. It sounds like everyone was so supportive, but like, was there any like studio pushback when you decided to make this character decision?
Yeah, you know, I'm so glad you said that. It's something I've actually got little chills, because I love that storyline. I love those two actors as well, Alan and Sunny. You know, sweethearts. And so to the question, do I think it's improving? You know what? I don't know how to answer that, because I don't know enough. You know, I remember when I did Looking for HBO that was somewhat kind of watershedy, that kind of thing. And basically, yeah, sorry, I don't know enough to be able to speak intelligently about it. I think representation is not only like important, but it's also interesting. It's like we want to know about other people's lives. I want to know about other people's lives. And then in terms of, no, Channel 4 and everyone was really supportive. I mean, occasionally you'd get notes, stuff like wanting to have more of that conversation about like, oh, what is it like coming out and realizing your sexuality and blah blah blah. And I was very keen, and with the support of Nick Collette, to kind of not have it about that, like just to have it about these two kids who are kind of falling for each other and trying to figure out what each other's relationship is with each other. And so I'm so glad you picked up on that, because it was something that was quite important to me.
No, it's a very beautiful storyline. Moving to a bit of a lighter question. You wrote some really catchy songs for the show that we still can't get out of our heads. Did you get into character to write the songs, or was it like, can you explain the process, and was it a particularly fun process?
I mean, I don't know whether to tell you this whole story or not, but the version, I mean, how much time we got? What time is it now? 12:36. No. Huh?
Go for a long story. We love a long story.
So basically, I'd written some of the songs before. Anyway, one day I was like, I'm gonna finish this other song. I was gonna finish one of the songs, the main song, and I thought someone had told me about microdosing, and I was like, oh, maybe I should try and microdose for it. Anyway, I will tell you the short version of the story. The point is, I failed at microdosing, and it went all the way. I went all the way into the other universe. And so I was like, oh, fuck, I'm not going to be able to do anything today. Today is ruined. But somewhere as I was in mid-place of my non-microdosing experience, I managed to find my way over to the keyboard. And that's when I wrote the other half of the song, Rolling Dice. So I guess maybe that is a little Maxxx-ish.
So, like, following like the success of Maxxx, do you have any plans, like, direct and write anything else? And also, like, it kind of ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, like, related to Rolling Dice. Like, are there any signs of a second season of Maxxx, like, coming sometime soon?
I don't know if there'll be a second season of Maxxx sometime soon. Right now, I'm developing a couple of other projects, which I'm really, really excited about, and hopefully in the next month or so I'll be able to announce some of them. But some are in the scripted space and some in the non-scripted space as well. So yeah, I've been developing stuff by myself and with one of my producing partners, Alex Jameson, and then also with my brother Luti, who is he's my ride or die, he's my guy.
Speaking of future projects, moving on to Black Widow, what can you tell us about your character, Rick Mason, if anything at all?
Yeah, Rick Mason, he's kind of like, he's the guy who, you know, can make things happen, you know, for, you know, kind of like the facilitator of the whims of the Black Widow. And but it's, you know, like, you get a sense that him and Black Widow have got a bit of a history, got a bit of a frisson. So yeah, so that's it's a really fun part, and Scarlett was great to work. It was really amazing working opposite like her. Actually, I learned quite a bit from her watching her on camera. She really knows what she's freaking doing.
Amazing. So, like, this is like your first role in like a very big franchise. How was like the experience different on set and like different to like previous projects that you've done?
To be honest, the main difference is with stuff like Comic-Con and all that kind of stuff. That, you know, all the hoopla that goes around it. But you know, when you get on set, I think anything around like, oh, there's this star or there's this, but it's just a distraction for me, and I try and tune that out as much as possible. That ultimately, my job is to advocate for my character and advocate for the truth in the scene, and just focus on that bit. And so on set, yeah, that was what it was all about, you know, and also having good times in between, you know. I got yeah, I got to meet and become quick friends with good old Florence Pugh, and she's, yeah, you know, she's a blast.
Yeah, I was going to say it has an amazing cast of Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Rachel Weisz. Like, how was set? Do you have any favourite memories that you can tell us or censor for us?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. There were a bunch. I mean, one is getting to chat with William Hurt, who's, you know, like an acting, you know, guru standard, and he said that he asked to speak to me, and so I went to his trailer and we just chatted for an hour about acting, and it was just fascinating to listen to, because, you know, he's done it all, and here he is doing a Marvel movie where he could just come and phone it in, and he was so locked in, so passionate, so dedicated to his craft. You know, it was really inspiring and invigorating, edifying to chat to him, because I was like, okay, yeah, you know, I don't know, I was just inspired about his passion for it.
That's amazing.
Amazing. So this is going to be a big spoiler alert for people who haven't seen Avengers Endgame. So if you haven't, I will wave again once the spoiler bit is over. So this is the wave. But like Black Widow is like such an iconic character in both like the Marvel films and the comics. But like following the events of Endgame, do you feel like the film is like a perfect send-off for the character?
Look, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I could say. What I could say is that the movie's going to be a banger, and you know, Kate, the director, has just done these amazing like indie movies, and where these intricate character things, and she's kind of brought that sensibility to the Marvel mode, and so I can't wait for people to see that this kind of confluence of like intimate family drama scenes with big action moments. Yeah, Black Widow gets her movie, and it's going to be worth it. People are going to love it.
I already cannot wait for cinemas to open again, so I can finally see it after a long wait. And now it's the wave for the end of the spoilers. So there we go.
No, we've definitely seen a kind of change and as you were saying, a confluence of tones and inspirations for Marvel movies and TV shows recently. But as we can see from the trailer for Black Widow, which is all we can go by, there was a lot of like hand-to-hand combat and intricate fight scenes. Were you involved in any of these? Did you have to do any kind of like specific training?
I don't know if I can get too far into that.
We can move on. So yeah. I guess then we can move on to the most recently announced project, which is The First Lady. Which is super exciting. We heard that you're going to be playing Barack Obama in the anthology series of The First Lady alongside Viola Davis as Michelle Obama. How did you feel when you found out that you got the part?
Well, I'll tell you this is the first time I've been asked any questions about it. So these are the very first. This is an exclusive. Cambridge exclusive. I was pumped about it. I mean, you know, it's a really interesting challenge to do something like that, because I've not done anything specifically like this before. I played Walter Tull, who's a historical character. There's no footage of him. So a couple of photographs. So yeah, I don't know, excited, nervous, you know, really curious about the work. I'm really curious about the process. Really curious about the process of studying someone this intricately. I'm spending a lot of time with Mr. B. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we were going to ask about like how different it is to prepare for a real person rather than a fictional character, but as it sounds, it's just like, is it just a lot of research, a lot of watching speeches, a lot of trying to get in the mindset? Is there like a certain pressure to it?
Yeah, I mean, there always is, but I guess, you know, the part of the job of the actor is to tune out all things which aren't leading you to what you're trying to get to. And for me, at least, that pressure isn't one of the things which I find useful, particularly, you know, because I love what I do. So I want to work hard anyway. I don't need pressure to work hard. Yeah, I guess speeches are interesting, but really, if you're trying to get to the core of a person, you know, I've been trying to like dig under the nails to figure out what's behind the speeches, the man behind the speeches. And so, yeah, so I don't know. I'm discovering, it's funny, actually, I was chatting with Lizzie Moss yesterday, or day before yesterday, about, you know, what you know, she was like, what are you doing? You know, and I actually called David Oyelowo up because he did this amazing Martin Luther King, and I was like, bro, what did you do? Like, so I'm figuring it out.
Have you had any kind of like discussions with Viola Davis about the kind of like characterization as a couple, your dynamic, or like how to approach it together?
Yeah, I mean, listen, and it goes without saying, she's the queen. And we've spoken, but I don't want to get too much into it, because
don't worry, we can move on. Before we get to some Q&A questions, we kind of want to look to the future in terms of the industry, and we've been asking this question to all of our guests. How do you think the TV and film industry has progressed in its diversity and representation, and how do you think it can improve even further? And has it changed since you entered in theatre or in screen?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we've learned is that, social consciousness and social pressure really has helped in increasing diversity in front of the camera. And we've gained so much from it. I mean, if you think about Hamilton, if we did things as things were always done and let, the same people tell the same story, we'd never have Hamilton, one of the greatest theatrical experiences of all time. Diversity for me is not about this tick box exercise. It's about, let's unleash these amazing talents and stories around us. And so there has been some growth on that end, particularly in front of the camera. I think where we need the most growth is behind the camera. And so, we found there's a method to increasing diversification in front of the screen, and that's keeping up social pressure, holding people to account in terms of, why are you just making movies and TV shows again and again, which are the same people in front? And so I feel like we just need to keep that pressure on to try and increase diversity behind the camera.
So soon we're going to have some questions from the audience. We've already got quite a few in, so people are quite excited to get started on that. But so type into the Q&A box, not the chat, if you have any more questions. But we're going to ask our final question from us, and it's quite a fun one. And that is, do you have any TV or film or theatre recommendations to fill the end of our lockdown terms?
Yes. Well, first of all, Maxxx, Maxxx. Check it on Channel 4 and Hulu. Do not miss. Make that number one on your must-watch list. What else have I really been enjoying recently? I mean, I May Destroy You, of course, is brilliant. What else have I been watching? Geez, my mind's gone blank. I should have checked it out. I mean, listen, if you've probably all watched When Harry Met Sally, I rewatched it the other day. It's the greatest romantic comedy of all time. Those are my two recommends.
Yeah.
You can't get better than the best.
Exactly, the classics. Well, our first Q&A question is from William Foxton, and he wanted to ask about Looking. What was it like working on the show? And also lots of people compared it to Girls or Sex and the City when it first aired. And how do you feel about these kinds of comparisons?
I mean, Girls and Sex and the City are both awesome TV shows, so I'm not beefing about it. I feel like Looking was a fundamentally different show from those two, from my perspective. Those two are definitely skewed slightly more comedy or whatever on it. But Looking really, in many ways, I felt was my first TV acting role. I'd done 10 years of TV before then, but that really was somewhat of a coming out, excuse the pun, experience for me, just in terms of the characterization and also a methodology of working. We're talking about moving from TV from theatre to TV. That was one of the ones where I was like, okay, I'm going to really engage with a different process. And then once again, Andrew Haigh, the amazing director, Michael Lannon, writer, and just this brilliant cast. And San Francisco itself, I got stories for days about San Francisco, man. I went on some adventures in that city. So that was, I loved the experience.
Yeah, we now have a question from Stella Jordan, and she says, being a part of such a brilliant show as Handmaid's Tale, and especially with your upcoming role as Barack Obama, do you think audiences are wanting more political entertainment nowadays? Do you think there's a certain like they're asking for it in a sense?
That's a good question, Stella. I don't know. I mean, I don't know without, I don't know, looking at the study of TV 20 years ago and TV now. I would say though that like I feel that television has become more sophisticated because there's just more budget, there's more eyes, there's more diversification in ways that we can access different types of TV shows. And so those who are curious about sophisticated political dramas, they're going to have more of that. So maybe the answer is yes.
Thank you. Our next question is from Marcos, who's from the at Handmaid's Tale Brazil community. Would you like, they would like to know your favorite episode on Handmaid's Tale, and where is Luke in the 4th season, if you can tell us.
Favorite episode of Handmaid's Tale? I don't know. I mean, look, I would say that I guess the first one that comes to my head would be that episode 5 in the last season. I mean, I think especially for Luke, when Luke gets the cassette and gets to hear June, and I really love the journey of that. But to be honest, my favorite episodes are upcoming in this new season. In this season 4, there are at least 2 episodes which I think might go into my top episodes of the entire show. Where do you find Luke? He's in Canada.
Good answer.
Very exciting. Now, similarly, on like a similar pattern, so we've got the administrator of the biggest Black Widow fan club page on Instagram, BWS Black Widow, who like wants to know like any like specific experiences about working with like Scarlett Johansson that you enjoyed, and like what was it like to like embody your character in Black Widow? Just
for I answer that, because I got a shout out to the Brazil Handmaids fans. I do want to say, well, in terms of where Luke is, he's desperate. He's really desperate and needs some resolution, and he may or may not find some. So okay, specific situation with Scarlett. You know, one thing that stood out to me is that, like, you know, I was working with her, and you know, we're doing this scene, and we're, you know, it's going great. She's charismatic and everything like that, and we do our medium, and I'm like, wow, she's really great, and we're doing the scene, and blah blah blah. And then we get to her close up, and I was like, she starts doing like magic. I don't know. She starts doing shit in this close up, and it's hard to really explain. Where I'm like, I literally, the thought that came into my head, I was like, oh, that's what a movie star is. Like a movie star is a person who can do that when the camera gets so close. And it's hard to put into words, but yeah, that was one of the most endearing memories of Scarlett, apart from just how vivacious and funny she is just watching her in that close-up and I literally had to pull myself out to say my next line. Like I was like she was doing it, and I was just like mesmerized. I was like, whoa. And then I was like, wake up! Be in the scene with her. You know. So that was one thing. Yeah.
Very exciting. Wow. Can't wait to watch.
Very, very exciting.
We have a really interesting question next from an anonymous attendee who asked, if the call came to be 007, would you be interested?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess at one point it was on my bucket list. I think what I loved with what Daniel Craig did is that he shook that shit up, you know, and that took an amazing performance from him, and like a kind of bravery amongst the producers to do something different. And so if I was allowed to do my version of 007, then I would be bang on that. If I had to kind of fit into this preconceived 007 model, I just don't know if that would be, so I don't know if I'd be so excited to watch that, but I would be interested to watch like what's in my crazy head about 007. So yeah.
We would also be very interested in that. Sounds great. So someone's also asked an interesting question of like, do you prefer like working like in the UK or like over in the States? Like, how does the like industry compare like across the pond?
You know what? There's just a lot more money in the States, so I prefer the paycheck, and I prefer the selection of snacks is much better in the States. So that's that. Having said that, you know, I'm aware that so many people, especially people of color in the UK, have had a really tough journey and have not been given the opportunities. And we've seen time and time again talents like Daniel Kaluuya, who were wasted in the UK. Like a Mr. Bean movie, and like that's what we had to do with a talent like Daniel Kaluuya. That's the best. England had Daniel Kaluuya for a decade, and that's the best we could do with him. Like, and I think we should feel so embarrassed about that when we just look at the quality of work he's doing now. And I tell you, there are 100 Black, Indian, Asian actors who could be producing England Daniel Kaluuya level work, and they're not, because they've not been given the opportunities. Anyway, that's my long intro to say that English TV has been great to me personally, and so for the lack of necessary big paychecks and snacks, high quality fruit, England has given me some really amazing opportunities, not least to be a writer and director of my own TV show. So I'm grateful for both.
One last question now. Someone has asked, like, as an amateur actor who wants to transition to professional acting, like, would you recommend trying to audition for like very, very small roles in big productions, or big roles in small productions? Like, which one would you like advise to focus on?
You know, when I had my first meeting with my agent, when I was just at drama school, and she said to me, "What do you want to do? Do you want to work in the RC? Do you want to do movies? What do you want to do?" I said, "I just want to work. I just don't want to be a waiter full time. Like, I just want to work. So just work. Do what you say. Do what you can. Grab what you can. Audition for everything." I wouldn't, like, the focusing thing. If you're in a situation where it's like, well, what should I've got 2 job offers, and it's a small thing and a big thing and a big thing and a small thing. I would say go for work with great people whenever you can, and so there might be some upcoming talent who's making a small budget thing, and you really believe in their artistry, you really believe in their skill, and it's some hack making this big thing. I'd incline you to go with the talent. Follow, like I said, don't be the smartest person in the room, don't be the most talented person in the room, surround yourself with excellence. So I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think this is all we have time for. Thank you so much for your thoughtful and wonderful answers, and for giving us your time. This has been such a great Q&A. It's been amazing. And thank you to everyone who's joined the call and who has watched and asked such great questions.
Yeah, thanks. So some really deep questions. Well, you went deep into the well, and I appreciate it.
You gave some inspiring answers and brilliant words to end on. For everyone watching, please like our Facebook page for more updates and opportunities. Our next event is on the 17th of March, and we are interviewing Matthew Kasovitz, director of La Haine. So register for the Q&A on our Facebook event or the link in our Instagram bio. Thank you again, OT, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.